Hi, I'm Everly. Not that my parents ever bothered to actually use my name. It was always Kiddo or Hey You when they remembered I existed at all. Standing in my attorney's office 15 years later, I'm finally ready to confront what they did to me. You're sure about this, Everly? Aunt Rachel asks, her fingers nervously tapping the armrest of her chair. Once we file these papers, there's no going back. I glance down at the stack of documents on the polished desk. I've never been more certain about anything in my life. They need to face consequences. I understand completely, says Melissa, my attorney, sliding the papers toward me. Child abandonment has no statute of limitations in this state when the victim was under 14. The evidence is compelling. Tell me again what happened from the beginning, Rachel says, her eyes full of the same guilt I've seen for years. I still can't believe my own brother would do this. I take a deep breath. I was 12. They told me on a Friday after school they were going to Europe for a month. A second honeymoon, they called it. I thought they were joking until Dad dropped $50 on the kitchen counter. $50 for a month? Melissa's pen stops mid-note. Dad said, and I quote, "The fridge is full. The bills are paid. You know how to cook. You'll be fine." I mimic his casual tone. Mom was already in the car honking the horn. Rachel shakes her head. Why didn't you call me? They told me not to bother anyone. Said they'd told neighbors to check in, which was a lie. Said they'd left emergency numbers, another lie. They threatened that if I told anyone they were gone, I'd be taken away and put in foster care where bad things happen to pretty girls. That's psychological abuse on top of abandonment, Melissa notes, her professional tone cracking slightly. How did you survive? Rachel asks, reaching for my hand. The $50 ran out after a week. The full fridge was mostly condiments and frozen pizzas. By day 10, I was stealing from neighbors' gardens at night. By week 3, I was digging through the school cafeteria garbage after hours. You never showed signs at school? Melissa asks. I became an expert at appearing normal, clean clothes, washed in the bathtub with hand soap, homework done, smile plastered on my face. I pause, swallowing hard. Until Mrs. Bennett from next door found me passed out in my front yard. I'd been trying to mow the lawn because I was afraid the city would notice and investigate. And that's when she called me. Rachel nods, tears forming. I was overseas with the military. By the time I got emergency leave and flew back, your parents had returned and were acting like nothing happened. And they convinced 12-year-old me to lie and say I'd been with a friend the whole time. They said you'd overreacted. Melissa straightens the papers. Mrs. Bennett kept a detailed journal. She documented seeing you alone day after day trying to survive. She took photos of you collecting fallen apples from her tree. She has dated, time-stamped evidence. Why is she helping now, after all these years? Rachel asks. Because I ran into her last month at the grocery store, I reply, the memory still fresh. She hugged me and whispered, I should have done more. I was afraid of getting involved. I'm so sorry. That's when I learned she'd been documenting everything. She thought if she reported it, I'd end up in the system and face worse. Instead, you suffered alone, Rachel says, her voice breaking. I nod, picking up the pen. And now they're going to answer for what they did. They bought tickets to Paris on their credit card 3 months before they left, Melissa says, spreading the documents across the conference table. They stayed at 4-star hotels across Europe while you were starving. I always wondered if it was spontaneous or planned, I say, studying the evidence. This proves they methodically arranged to abandon me. The conference room door opens, and Mrs. Bennett enters, clutching an old leather journal to her chest. Despite being in her 70s now, her eyes are sharp with determination. Everly, honey, she says, embracing me. I brought everything I documented. I'm just so sorry I didn't do more at the time. You were the only one who noticed, I reply. You left food on the porch anonymously. Those muffins probably kept me alive that last week. Mrs. Bennett nods, tears gathering. I was raised never to interfere with how others parent. It was wrong. I should have called the police immediately. Mrs. Bennet, these records are incredibly detailed, Melissa says, flipping through the journal. You even noted the temperatures each day? It was July. Nearly 100 degrees for 2 weeks straight. No air conditioning in their house. I watched this child trying to sleep on her front lawn at night because it was too hot inside. Mrs. Bennet's voice shakes. I gave her my garden hose to cool off. She was too proud to come inside my home when I offered. The door swings open again. A balding man with an expensive watch storms in. This is ridiculous. Absolute nonsense. Uncle Greg, I say, my voice cooling instantly. No one invited you. Your father called me, said you're dragging the family name through mud with some vendetta. He tosses his keys on the table. So they left you alone for a few days. Kids need independence. I stayed home alone at your age. A few days? Mrs. Bennet stands up straight. It was 32 days. I counted every single one. You're exaggerating, Greg scoffs. Am I exaggerating the fact that she lost 11 pounds? That she was caught trying to sell her toys at a yard sale for food money? Mrs. Bennet opens her journal. July 18th, found Everly attempting to catch squirrels in the backyard with a laundry basket. When asked why, she said she hadn't eaten protein in 4 days. That's... Greg starts. July 22nd, Mrs. Bennet continues. Everly asked if she could clean my gutters for $5. Her clothes were visibly dirty. She had a heat rash on her neck and arms. Stop it, Greg shouts. My brother would never... Your brother and his wife emptied their daughter's college fund to pay for their trip, Melissa interjects, sliding another document forward. $12,000 that her grandparents had set aside. Gone. They told the bank they were the legal guardians and had authority. Greg falls silent, staring at the bank records. Are you still defending them? I ask quietly. What do you want, Everly? Money? An apology? Greg asks, deflated. I want justice. I want legal consequences for child abandonment and endangerment. I want them to face a judge and explain why they left a 12-year-old to starve. They'll lose everything, Greg whispers. Their reputations, maybe their freedom. While they were posting pictures from the Eiffel Tower, Rachel says, pulling up their old social media posts, Everly was drinking from the neighbor's garden hoses because the water bill hadn't actually been paid. Greg stands abruptly. I need to speak with my brother. This is indefensible. As he leaves, Melissa turns to me. We're filing first thing tomorrow. Are you prepared for them to come at you hard when they're served? Let them try, I reply, my voice steady. I'm not that helpless 12-year-old anymore. The doorbell rings at exactly 7 p.m., right on schedule. My parents are nothing if not punctual when it serves them. Ready? Rachel asks, squeezing my shoulder. I've been ready for 15 years, I reply, opening the door. They look older, but still carry that air of entitlement. Mom's expensive highlights, Dad's golf tan. They push past me into my living room without waiting for an invitation. This has gone far enough, Everly, Mom says, dropping her designer purse on my coffee table. We need to talk about this ridiculous lawsuit. Ridiculous? I repeat, remaining standing while they sit. Is that how you characterize child abandonment? Oh, please, we went on vacation, Dad says with a dismissive wave. You were fine. I nearly starved to death. Always so dramatic, Mom sighs. You had food. We left you money. $50 for 32 days, that's $1.50 per day. Dad shifts uncomfortably. We thought we left more. No, you didn't, Rachel says, emerging from the kitchen. You emptied her college fund for your trip. You knew exactly what you were doing. Mom's face hardens, seeing her sister-in-law. Of course you're behind this. You've always been jealous of our lifestyle. Lifestyle? Rachel laughs bitterly. You mean child neglect as a lifestyle choice? We made one mistake, Dad says, his tone softening to the manipulative gentleness I remember so well. Everly, honey, we're your parents. We love you. Can't we work this out as a family? Like the family you abandoned for a month? I ask. You were always so independent, Mom tries. We thought you'd be proud to show how grown up you were. I was 12. We're sorry if you felt abandoned, Dad says, emphasizing felt as if my experience was merely a misperception. Sorry doesn't erase the nights I went to bed hungry, I reply. Sorry doesn't change the fact that I developed nutritional deficiencies that affected my growth. Sorry doesn't undo the trauma. What do you want then? Mom snaps. Money? Is that it? You're just after our savings? I want you to face legal consequences for what you did. The prosecutor is pursuing criminal charges. Their faces change instantly. Dad goes pale. Mom's eyes narrow. You ungrateful little, Mom starts, rising from her seat. After everything we did for you? Like what? Name one sacrifice you ever made for me. We gave you everything, she shouts. A roof over your head, clothes. The bare legal minimum, I interrupt. And then not even that when you left. If you go through with this, you are no longer our daughter, Dad says, his voice low and threatening. I stopped being your daughter the day you decided a European vacation was more important than my survival. Mom steps toward me, finger pointed. You will drop this case or I swear. Or you'll what? I challenge. Abandon me again? Been there. We'll make sure everyone knows what an attention-seeking liar you are, she hisses. We'll destroy your reputation. Dad grabs her arm as she moves closer to me. Carol, don't... But Mom pulls free and shoves me hard against the wall. You little ingrate! Rachel immediately steps between us, phone in hand. That's assault, Carol, on camera. Want to try for more charges? You set us up, Dad whispers, pulling Mom back. No, I say calmly. I just knew who you really are. Always have. We're your parents. We deserve respect, Mom says, smoothing her blouse as if composing herself. You forfeited that right 32 days into my 12th summer. Now get out of my house. Everly, please, Dad tries one last time, his voice breaking. We're sorry, we truly are. Let us make it up to you. Save it for the judge, I reply, opening the door. Court date is Tuesday. Don't be late. The courtroom falls silent as the judge reviews the evidence one final time. My parents sit across the aisle, dressed conservatively, a stark contrast to their usual flashy style. Their attorney looks grim. Based on the overwhelming evidence and the defendant's admission of guilt, the judge finally says, this court finds Carol and James Miller guilty of child endangerment, child abandonment, and child neglect. A collective exhale fills the room. Beside me, Rachel grips my hand. Given the severity and premeditated nature of these crimes, the judge continues, I sentence the defendants to 18 months in state prison, 3 years probation upon release, and restitution in the amount of $150,000 to the victim. My mother gasps audibly. My father's head drops to his hands. Your Honor, their attorney starts. I'm not finished, the judge interrupts. The defendants will also complete 500 hours of community service at a youth shelter upon release and attend mandatory parenting and empathy counseling. Court is adjourned. As people begin to file out, my parents approach with their attorney. Everly, Dad says, voice trembling. Please, we can appeal. We can fix this if you just tell the judge you forgive us. That's not how the legal system works, Melissa replies before I can. Your guilt isn't contingent on Everly's forgiveness. We're your parents, Mom pleads. All her earlier venom replaced with desperation. Family forgives. Family sticks together. Where was that family loyalty when you left me with $50 and an empty fridge? I ask calmly. We made a terrible mistake, Dad says. Everyone deserves a second chance. I gave you 15 years of chances, I reply. 15 years of holidays where you never once acknowledged what you did. 15 years of you gaslighting me, telling extended family I was exaggerating. Prison? Mom whispers. You'd really send your own parents to prison? I didn't send you anywhere. Your actions did. Your choices. What about your choices right now? Dad asks. You're choosing revenge. No, I'm choosing justice. There's a difference. As court officers approach to take my parents into custody, Mom makes one last attempt. We love you, Everly. Please don't do this to us. I look her directly in the eyes. You should have thought about the consequences when you left a 12-year-old alone for a month with $50. They're led away, and I remain seated until the courtroom empties. Only Rachel, Melissa, and Mrs. Bennet remain. How do you feel? Rachel asks gently. Lighter, I reply honestly, like I can finally move forward. They might try to contact you after sentencing, Melissa warns. You don't have to respond. I know, I nod. And I won't. Mrs. Bennet pats my hand. You stood up not just for yourself, but for every child who's been neglected. You should be proud. Outside the courthouse, we pause on the steps. The spring sunshine feels appropriate. A new beginning. What now? Rachel asks. Now I live my life without their shadow hanging over me, I reply. I'm starting a foundation for neglected children using the restitution money. Kids who have to be their own parents deserve support. You're going to help a lot of people, Melissa says with admiration. I hope so, I smile, feeling genuine hope for the first time in years. You know what the hardest part of being abandoned at 12 was? Not knowing if anyone would ever notice or care. We notice. We care, Rachel says, hugging me tightly. As we walk away from the courthouse, I wonder how many other children are out there right now, trying to survive on their own like I did. How many are hoping someone will notice their empty lunchboxes or unwashed clothes? Maybe my story will help at least one person speak up. Maybe it will make one neighbor check in on the quiet kid next door. Have you ever had to stand up to family for something they did wrong? Was it worth it in the end? Let me know in the comments.